Governor, first of all, congratulations.
Well, thanks. Yep, thank you.
I wanted to ask you first about sort of the future, looking forward. I think all of us are feeling some COVID-19 fatigue. Friday, you mentioned that one of the metrics for lifting further restrictions was about vaccination. And I'm wondering if when we reach herd immunity, 70 to 75% of the population vaccinated, would you foresee any reason at that point to keep any restrictions in place?
Yeah, it all depends where we are right then. So it's really going to be where we are at that moment in terms of infection rates, hospitalization rates, and I think the key piece that you just said is the percentage of people who've been vaccinated. It's not only just the people with 2 vaccinations, it's also people with 1, and we need to make sure that we know that. I was on the call with Dr. Fauci last week on one-on-one, and I asked him that question, and I said, how protected am I with 1 shot? He said, you're virtually 100% protected from hospitalization or death with 1 shot for that 21 to 28 days. So I think we have to factor all those in as we kind of do our modeling in terms of where we are. But we got to be really cautious right now. And that's why I'm saying high level of discipline, making sure we're following the protocols. We don't want to mess up right now. We don't want to skip, have a skip of a beat of anything right now, right? Because it could fall back, and then the idea that I've had and it's starting to be adopted is this incremental flexibility on our reopening of both our schools and our businesses. I think that we can keep moving ahead. But it's a matter of where we are at that moment in time, but the vaccinations are coming, and that's a really important thing for people to know. We've already built up the capacity since I've been governor to 100,000 shots a week, and we're just looking for Washington to send them our way so that we can have municipal people and state pods, along with our pharmacies, Walgreens and CVS, getting shots in the arm.
You mentioned also previously that you hope to, as the president suggested, drop eligibility requirements by May 1st. If you are able to do that, and there is supply, when do you think we will see 70 to 75% of the state vaccinated, fully vaccinated?
Well, the goal is to have the eligibility, the people who are eligible for a vaccination throughout the whole population, right, by the end of May for the first shots. That was the president's goal, and we share that goal, and that's what we're gearing up for. It's going to be up to the federal government to get us the supply. We're going to make sure our capacity continues to be ahead of our supply, so that when the supply comes in, we have the ability to get shots in the arms as quickly, as safely as possible.
What about the mask mandate? I spoke with Dr. Jim McDonald a couple weeks ago. He said maybe we'll see the masks as a recommendation versus a requirement this summer. Is that something that you're looking at?
Again, I think it's going to be based on the amount of vaccinations that get out, how quickly we get them out, and also where we are in any other variants in the unknown. So my feeling is, until further notice, we're following the guidelines, the protocols that are in place. Everybody knows them. You can repeat them over again: masks, social distancing, right, washing your hands. And then everybody, when you're eligible, go online and or give a call and get in line for the vaccination. That's really critical. I think that one of the X factors right now is the hesitancy potentially that's there, and at some point we may have more vaccine than people willing to put the shots in the arm. We got to get past that by a very strong grassroots communication between all our civic leaders, our municipal leaders, our state leaders. All our medical personnel needs to deliver this message loud and clear that vaccination keeps you safe, keeps you healthy, keeps you out of the hospital, and it'll eliminate the death issues that we are all very sad about, and that's our overall objective, right? Is keep people safe, and certainly our empathies, sympathies go out to the families that have been impacted by any level of mortality in their families, any loss that they've had.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about vaccine eligibility. You expanded eligibility late last week to those 60 to 64 and those under 65 with certain underlying medical conditions. Those appointments opened Friday at 5. We heard a lot of frustration from folks. We understand that's a pool of about 160,000 people. There were only about 1,600 appointments that opened on Friday. Why expand eligibility to such a large group when you knew there would be such a small number of appointments?
Well, I think that the main thing is that we're going to take appointments in advance. We need the people to call in. When it opened up in my age group, for myself and my wife Susan, it took us 2 or 3 times online, and we got an appointment. I know over the course of the weekend, there was that real surge, and that was something that we probably should have been prepared for, but that's no longer the case. People are not, people know if there's an appointment now, and they were able to get through the process. Took Sue and I 3 or 4 times, and then we got our appointment. Now we got a second shot coming at the March 23rd. So I would encourage people to continue there. If they're having issues like they had initially with that, let us know. We certainly will respond to it. But right now, I know on Saturday and Sunday, the same people who told me that they were getting bounced off or getting in and then not getting bounced out after, they were getting appointments. So there's people who are getting appointments. Not everybody's going to get one because of the supply, but I can tell you that our capacity is there. And so we got to make sure that people understand that. Don't get frustrated. Continue as more and more vaccine becomes available, there'll be more and more appointments, and they'll be able to get online or give a call, and they'll get their appointment. The main thing right now is for people to understand that they have some level of patience, because there is that demand. Our demand for the vaccine outweighs our supply. At some point in time, in this very near distant future, that's going to be reversed. There'll be more supply than people who are willing to have the shots in the arm, and then that's our job to get out and make sure that people who are eligible, that they're not hesitant about taking that shot.
What changes is the state making or looking to make to the vaccination portal? Because as you said, you heard from a lot of people over the weekend. We certainly did too, who were saying, we're getting error messages, the site is crashing. So what specific lessons are you taking away from what happened on Friday? Yeah,
well, I would say that I don't think it crashed. Crash would have been, we're out of, we would have been out of the ability to do it. I think that we need to make sure that when somebody goes online and there's an appointment there, and they put it in, and they get to the next page, that this 15-minute rule applies, and they make sure they have a time, just like when you're booking a ticket to Hamilton or something like that, right? You want to make sure that that the ticket's still there when you actually put all your information in. I think we have corrected that. I know that's being corrected, and we got to make sure that people see an appointment and they plug it in, and that they have time to actually get that appointment, and they don't get pushed back like that happened on Friday afternoon. I think that's happening now, but we'll keep an eye on it. Anybody out there that's having that problem, they should certainly give our office a call, give the Department of Health a call. We'll respond to that, because it's got to be a simple process. It can't frustrate people, because we really need them to get vaccinated. So right now, not enough supply for the demand, as you said, but that's going to change, and we know that's going to change, and that's why we're building out the capacity right now to do more than 100,000 shots a week. Once that's up, we have the vaccine. The issue is going to be more about making sure people make their appointments, right, as opposed to fighting for that spot right now.
What do you say to the person at home right now who's maybe 60 years old with an underlying health condition like heart disease, who says, I went on Friday, there weren't any appointments, and if Governor McKee hadn't opened eligibility to teachers on Tuesday, I might have been able to get myself an appointment on Friday. What do you say to that person?
Well, again, there's certainly a priority list. I think that the teachers are a priority, because in any of our families, our grandkids or our kids, they're our highest priority. What's happening in their lives right now is really significant. Loss of learning time and emotional issues, the physical issues. So I think that everybody in Rhode Island, most people in Rhode Island, will understand why we did what we did. And then I know supply's coming, so I would just say to the people there, make sure you're following the protocols right now that have kept you safer during this 10 months, just a little bit longer. You're going to get vaccinated. You're going to be in that spot, like Dr. Fauci told me, where you're going to be protected against the hospitalization and against the mortality, the death rate. So I would say have patience, but also I would continue to reinforce and have the discipline to anybody out there that's still healthy during the last year. They can. My ask is to join in and make sure that they follow the protocol so they stay healthy at the point in time when they're going to get the vaccination, and it's going to happen very soon.
Yeah, you've mentioned a point in time where supply outpaces demand. From your conversations with the federal government, when do you expect that to happen?
I expect that that's going to happen if the president follows through on his commitment, which I believe he has. This week we're we're doing well over 60,000 vaccinations and shots in the arms this week alone in Rhode Island. We can do 100,000. I think we could get as high as 150,000. So as long as the president follows through and what he said he's on the pace to do, that by the end of May, we expect to have every person that's eligible in the state of Rhode Island with a shot in the arm.
So by the end of May is when you expect supply to outpace demand?
I would say that sometime during May that will happen, because to be able to do that, you're going to need to make sure that you're getting the 100,000 shots in a week or more. And I believe that the president has shown that what he said is he's followed through at this point in time. And if he sees a track to get everybody with a first shot by the end of May, Rhode Island's going to be prepared for that. And I think that's the message. That's kind of the hope message right now for people, as they see when that's going to happen. And again, if people continue to have the discipline, I mean, I'm wearing a mask today, right? So if they have the discipline to do the things that have kept us healthy, and they do that a few more weeks, they're going to find that they're going to get vaccinated, and that's going to be really a really positive step for the state of Rhode Island. It'll get us out of the emergency situation that we're in, even with the emergency executive orders that are in place. So I can't wait to get out of that emergency situation and get back to a point where we're not under that protocol, and that's my overall objective. First step is to get the vaccinations going, get out of the emergency situation, get the kids back and the teachers back in the classroom, right, and get our businesses back in business so people can be employed and that our economy really recovers and gets stronger.
Last question about vaccinations, and I want to try and get to some other topics. There are already multiple vaccination requirements for school-age kids and people who work with children. Could you see the COVID-19 vaccine becoming a mandatory shot for at least teachers come September?
So I don't know where in that area. I can tell you I'm talking to higher education presidents that want to make it mandatory as part of like you have your chickenpox shot, right? And then you have so many shots that you need to have to get onto a college campus, and that's being worked on right now. So I think in certain age groups it's important, but also I think that if the mandatory side of the things could very well be on the vaccination if we need to get opened up. But I think at this point in time, I prefer people, making up their own decisions and doing that, and then we can see where we are. I think that you're going to see most people, once they understand that it's safe, and it keeps you safe, keeps you healthy, keeps you out of the hospital, and family members won't be dying as a result of it. I think you're going to see that people are going to understand that it's really the most important thing that they could do right now for the state of Rhode Island and getting us back to a spot and then recovering even further than when we entered into this pandemic.
I want to ask you about finding your replacement as Lieutenant Governor. You said you've hoped to name your new Lieutenant Governor in the next 30 days. How many of the roughly 70 people who applied for the position are currently being interviewed?
I made a decision to interview them all. So we set up an interview process that everyone's interviewed. Of course, I only get to select one person, but inside of the 70 plus people who have said that they are interested in helping the state of Rhode Island, I think you need to respect that. And we don't know who we're going to find there. We may find people who maybe aren't going to be the ones person that's selected as Lieutenant Governor, but we may find people who are willing to serve on boards. We may find people who are that you might want to employ. We don't know. So my feeling is we went to everyone, and we're giving a good overview and an interview to each and every person, and then we'll narrow it down, and eventually I'll talk to a couple people and then make that ultimate decision on what I think is the best interest of the state under the current situations that we're in.
You had two women who had applied to be the next Lieutenant Governor drop out of the process. One of them took to Twitter and called the process a joke and said, "You've probably already picked the person." How do you respond to that? Well,
first of all, I haven't picked the person. I keep on saying that. So if anybody thinks they know, we'll come out publicly and say who it is. But I received two good letters from individuals, and probably the same people you're talking about, who said that they were willing to help out any way that they could. They were very professional in the way that they submitted their whatever you want to call it, their letter that said that they were removing themselves from consideration. Both individuals were very, very professional, and I thank them for that. I'm surprised that somebody would call it a joke, because the people who are getting interviewed right now don't think it's a joke. And as I just said, the people who are being interviewed, we're valuing what they potentially could do for the state of Rhode Island. And the only way we can do that is go through this process of interviewing each and every person that showed an interest in serving as lieutenant governor. And many of them have said that they really want to help the state of Rhode Island. So we'll certainly give them the opportunity to do just that.
You mentioned to the House Small Business Committee 2 weeks ago that your staff was reviewing CARES Act spending. And now you've announced another small business grant program to the tune of $30 million. Is that $30 million left over from the CARES Act money?
Yes, it is. And that's what I was saying as a lieutenant governor and incoming governor, that I would take a look at what was appropriated to help small businesses and see what actually was provided as grants and then what was left over. So we looked at about $30 million, which is not a small number. On the small businesses, we're looking at that as a good bridge strategy right now, and we'll make sure that the process is very easy for people to fill out. Our goal is to do a few thousand businesses to help them with a small grant, and then we're going to really organize an all-out ground effort to help people with the PPP loans. This is the most, you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars on the PPP. You're talking about $20, $30 million, which is not a small number. That's never been done inside of a state budget before to help small businesses. But this PPP, we're going to actually organize, do a whole groundwork, door to door with businesses, with municipal leaders. We'll hire in some people, but there's hundreds of millions of dollars available on the PPP. So the message is, yes, we're going to help with the grants. We're going to focus on the PPP, which is those, payroll protection plan that was existed last year. And then we're going to get really talking about certain regulations and certain things that we can do inside the pandemic that make sense, but also with a look at making Rhode Island a small business friendly state by continuing the process that has already started. And one of the good news is right now there's a lot of interest in helping small businesses right now because of the coverage that we've had, some of the advocacy that I've provided, the Rhode Island Small Business Coalition that I helped start, and also I'm seeing reps and senators and policymakers really talking about helping small businesses. That's a little bit of a silver lining in all this difficult economy that the crisis that we're in right now.
So there was a proposal to increase the gas tax by...
That was in the budget that I looked at, initially as being one of the areas where they were talking about new revenue.
And so you decided to eliminate it, and how did you balance it without that tax increase?
Yeah, so there was a proposal to do a 9-cent gas tax. And then what we did was we looked at different ways that we could create offsetting. And I think we showed that in the budget proposal where some of the stimulus dollars that was carried over we were able to use. We were able to provide small businesses with tax relief on their income tax up to about $70 million, excuse me. But we did tax anything that's over $150,000 on those PPP loans. So that was revenue that was helping to offset that. The other things in the budget we were able to do is honor the vehicle excise tax phase out, which was important, and then our proposal on the marijuana was totally different, right? It was an entrepreneurial plan where it was allowing, especially protecting the cultivators right now who invested in their businesses to make sure that they still have a chance to prosper there. Almost 85 cultivators too. So I think there was things in the budget that we were able to really impact. But that gas tax was, the gasoline tax of 9 cents, I thought that was going to be staggering for the state of Rhode Island, and this is not the time to be raising taxes.